Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization.
That was from President Trump's inauguration speech. Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Bo Williams. Don has the week off. This week, President Trump began his second term and his administration has hit the ground running. And we want to bring in Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett to discuss what has happened on Capitol Hill during the president's first week back in office. First of all, Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. It has been a busy week, so let's start first things off. What are you looking for now that we're off and running over the next 4 years? What are you hoping to accomplish here, to see happen?
Well, I'd like to see the border situation finally resolved. You know, we've just had mishandling upon mishandling of the border and just complete capitulation, if you will. Over 14 million people have come over the border. You've had rapists, child molesters, murderers, you name it. And then now we find out members of the Taliban, which I'm particularly interested in since I have a bill to defund them, and why they would be in this country and their interest in me. And we have Chinese communist spies that are here. And so I think it's time we shut the border down and we start deportations of folks that are here, especially the ones that are here to do us harm. I think you're going to see a lot of that. I was fortunate enough to be one of the few appointed to the DOGE committee, Department of Government Efficiency. We're delving into all the mismanagement of government and just the crazy spending. And also there's always talk of the budget and where we're going with it. I'm very concerned. I've said this many times. Some of my friends in the Democrat Party, they're not concerned about government spending, and they make that very evident. But the Republicans, we know better, and we talk about it. We go home and talk about it, and then we come back to Washington and vote for big spending bills. So I'm very much concerned about the possibility of us finding cuts, making incredible cuts, and then just pouring it into the Pentagon, which, as you know, is not passed or actually even finished their last 8 audits. They cannot account for over $500 billion right now. That's more than a battleship that they cannot account for. And how are we punishing them? Last time the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that I did not support, we gave them an additional $8 billion. And some of these times it's more than we've asked for. And these are programs that missile defense systems that will immediately be mothballed upon completion, yet we still are funding them. Those are the kind of things that I'm worried about, and I hope President Trump is worried about as well.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned the Department of Government Efficiency, that you're now part of the committee. TVA spending, you had brought that up recently. Talk a little bit about that, your views right now.
Well, TVA reminds me a little bit of the post office. When they need our help, they're a government agency, but when we tell them to start doing some things correctly or more efficiently or more transparency, they say, hey, wait a minute, we're not a government agency. And I've run into that with the post office as well. So, yeah, I'm concerned about TVA. I don't have any say over the head of TVA making $10 million a year. That's up to the board. And frankly, I like Jeffrey Lash, excuse me. He's always been very forthcoming. He meets with me most of the time, and I think we have a great relationship. That's up to the board over the payment to him. What I'm concerned about with TVA is transparency. Congressman Cohen and I from Memphis have a bill, and it passed the House unanimously, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. And it's in the Senate now. If somebody in the Senate has enough guts to bring it up, that would be nice. And it just says that these second-tier people at TVA that make up above 115 or 20,000, I can't remember the number right now, that the public has a right to know what they are paid. And I think that's perfectly legit. If they were a private entity, it's not our business. But since they are technically a public entity, I think you and I as taxpayers and as American citizens deserve a right. The last time they gave out bonuses this last round, I believe they gave out over $200 million in bonuses. $200 million. And their profit was right around $1 billion. So I'm concerned about that. I would like for them to start paying down debt, but I would like for them to start telling us how much they're paying their people. And I'm not sure exactly why they did not disclose that to us.
Let me ask you this, too, and I want to remind everybody at home, we're recording this on Friday. President Trump in North Carolina. He'll be in California as well. But he's made several comments concerning FEMA and the future of FEMA, and maybe giving more back to the states in situations like this. You go along with that? What needs to happen here?
Not only do I go along with it, I'm filing legislation to do just that. FEMA is a bureaucratic nightmare. You know, they do set-asides. They do things totally inappropriate. They're arrogant, and they don't take care of our people, and they need to go out of business. You have groups like Samaritan's Purse and others that are on the ground. They were on the ground in North Carolina before the flooding stopped. And where is FEMA? You know, they're in some Walmart parking lot playing God, telling people they get $700 if they follow the certain rules. You know, those people didn't have a computer. Some of them didn't have any identification because guess what? It got washed away in the dadgum flood. And, you know, and then Biden comes out and says, we're going to make all these people whole over in California. It's a nightmare, and it needs to be cleaned up. It's another bureaucracy, and these liberals will be out here crying their crocodile tears, but they're going to have to get in line because there's a new game in town, and it's much more efficient, and frankly, it's long overdue. President Trump, if he hasn't already, act surprised when you hear this. He's going to tell the Army Corps of Engineers to get off their butts and get back up to North Carolina and fix that problem. Look, those people are still living in tents. They don't have electricity. They don't have water. They haven't taken care of the people in Hawaii, which we know exactly what went down there, that the people got burnt out in a very decent area of Hawaii. And then the buzzards couldn't wait till they're even in the ground to start picking the bones. They're already up there trying to buy the property back. There's a delay on getting anything fixed. And you'll see the same thing in California. And if you think they're going to be able to rebuild those houses along the Pacific Ocean, you're gravely mistaken. There will be so much bureaucracy. And then in California, of course, they divert billions upon billions of gallons of water into the ocean for no real known reason. And they're expecting this country to bail them out again. And no, they need to fix that problem before we bail them out.
Will it be that simple, though, shifting stuff back over to the states in situations like this without some government assistance? Or how does this all play out as far as from the state's perspective?
Yeah, well, you'd still have the function. You still have FEMA as an organization, but they would, in fact, just be a conduit for funds going to legitimate organizations, not these NGOs that are connected to the Biden family or some crooked organization that we've seen in the illegal immigration, like Catholic Charities has been doing some horrible things. And they're not even associated, I don't think, even with the Catholic Church anymore. And so we've seen these organizations do these things. They get the money in the beginning. They maybe are legit, and they just can't help themselves. That money burns a hole in their fingers and their pockets, and they start doing their crooked ways. That's human nature, but we need to slow back on it a little bit.
Well, you brought up immigration.
It's the same way with the Red Cross years ago. They were flying on the Concorde jet, staying in the fanciest deals, and they took over, and and had to clean them up again, which they might have to do again after all this. I'm not sure, but that's something we'll be looking into.
You brought up immigration. I do want to touch on, obviously, the president touching on a number of things. We've seen the military, 1,500 troops, I believe the number is, as far as headed to the border. But also want to talk about birthright citizenship. That is something that's getting some pushback. So your thoughts on that as you see this one play out?
Well, that was created actually to give slaves the right of citizenship because they were not, black folks were not given that I believe in the original formation of that. And again, it was a great idea, it's a great program, whatever, and it's gotten abused. It's like somebody comes into your house and has a baby, never been in your house before, but just runs in the door and has a baby. Then all of a sudden they're entitled to live in your house. And and sit at your dinner table. That's exactly what this thing has become. It's become a racket. You have wealthy people flying over here from other countries. We've seen this type of abuse in the past, and it's just being abused. So it needs to stop, and I think it needs to be readdressed.
I know we're running.
We can't afford this anymore. 14 million people. We don't know where they are. Unfortunately, we do, and we're not doing anything about it in the past under the Biden administration. And I think that's why you're hearing a lot of, look, these big corporations love having slave labor, and these dirtbags, deviants that I tell you, the bigger question is we ought to be asking, where the heck are those 300,000 children that have disappeared into the system? Well, I'll tell you where they are. They're being sold into sex slavery. We have these groups on the border that are possibly using them for organ harvesting. We have, they're in sweatshops and basically modern day slavery. That's where a lot of them are. And it's, honestly, I fear my maker if one day I go there and he says, what have you done for the least amongst you? And, that was Jesus talking. He's my guy. And I say, well, Lord, I let the people go who did that to the least amongst you. I just don't think that's going to sit too well with him. And that's the one issue that really keeps me up at night is where are the over 300,000 children right now that we've allowed into this country.
Congressman, one other question I want to throw at you here before I let you go. We are running a little tight on time, but another big topic, at least a topic of discussion, it seems like, Greenland. Your thoughts on this? It seems to be, we're hearing from all sides on this one.
Yeah.
What's the importance here? And do you agree with possibly, taking Greenland, I guess, from Denmark? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, you got to realize it's Trump. And his deal is the art of the deal. Mm-hmm. He's not going to get into a war with Canada or any of these other folks. But he's a cowboy, and they realize it. It's like Soleimani was a vicious, evil terrorist, and Trump sent him to hell. Sent a cruise missile after him. He didn't check with NATO. He didn't check with the UN. He sure as heck didn't check with Congress and Nancy Pelosi. He took the guy out. And the only way they identified that guy was his ring finger. I've seen the pictures. It's pretty gruesome, but that's really about all they had left was this ring that this guy had on, this unusual ring. And they realize they're dealing with a cowboy now. They think, nah, he won't do that type of thing. He's not going to do anything, but just in the back of their mind, they're thinking he might. So what do they have over there that we don't have access to a lot of? Rare earth minerals. Greenland has one of the largest deposits of some of the rare earth minerals that we need for our batteries and our cell phones and other things. I think what Trump's doing is just trying to get them more in line to do better business with us. Now, you have a large portion of that company. They're basically socialists. They live in subsidized housing and things like that. I can't imagine us taking them on as the 51st state. But I realize the business aspect over there, and maybe just interject a little in their economy and open the doors for ours over there. And so I think it could bode well for both countries to maybe get in business together, and we develop a better friendship over there. So I think that's really what he's up to.
All right, Congressman, we're going to end there. Thank you so very much. I know you've got a busy agenda, so we appreciate you taking some time and look forward to talking to you again. Again,
thank you, brother.
Yep, Congressman Tim Burchett joining us. We'll unpack what the Congressman has to say right after this.
Thank goodness for Ken Weathers and Storm Team 6.
Ken was on top of the snowstorm days in advance, making sure you knew what to expect.
Ken and the team are all dedicated to keeping you and your family safe.
This is where we need to be careful, especially as the sun's starting to set.
Knoxville's most accurate forecast is on WATE 6 on your side.
It's bow time. Bojangles has your morning craving covered with any of our classic made-from-scratch biscuits and a side of bow rounds for just $5. Cajun filet biscuit and bow rounds, $5. Sausage, egg, and cheese plus bow rounds, $5. Available for a limited time. It's bow time.
Get ready, drop the confetti. Introducing Home Theater, My Style, the new SoundTech motion leather living room.
By Shaq.
The ultimate home theater experience, now at Rooms to Go. Big style, big comfort, very cool.
And 2 great custom leather colors.
Ready to entertain with our epic SoundTech built-in audio system that surrounds you with amazing sound.
And Shaq knows sound.
The power motion that moves you.
The new SoundTech motion leather living room by Shaq.
Exclusively now and rooms to go.
You see a chipped or cracked windshield. We see it repaired or replaced by our specialists. At our place or yours. Visit glassdoctor.com.
Call the Glass Doctor, we'll fix your paint. Oh, yeah!
All right, welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A moment ago, we heard from Congressman Tim Burchett. Now let's bring in our panel of pundits to weigh in on what he had to say. This week, we're joined by Craig Griffith, Michael Covington, and Julia Hurley, who's in for Courtney this week. Great to have all of you here. Julia, great to have you here as well. Let's talk about what we just heard from the congressman. Craig, I'll start with you. Anything jump out what he had to say?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think it's
then we move on.
Fairly standard stuff from Tim. So, you know, I mean, there's all sorts of things to unpack about, you know, the efforts to cut federal spending.
Right.
You know, of course, in my opinion, they aren't really addressing the real drivers of the federal budget. There's four things that are the drivers of the federal budget: Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, the Defense Department, and then the interest on our debt. And I was reading in the order that created the Department of Dodge is that they're going to address federal manpower levels, federal government, and not really address the real issues that are driving the deficit and the debts. You can cut all the discretionary spending for the money that Congress actually oversees. You know, the National Park Service, the subsidies to farmers coming out of the agriculture. You can cut all that. That only amounts to 30% of the budget. You're still running a deficit and a debt, even if you do that. So until they come up with plans to address those, and Tim and I have talked about this on numerous occasions, until you come up with a plan to address those core drivers of the federal budget and the deficit and the debt, you know, it's only window dressing.
Surprised you to bring up the penny. Elon Musk the other day saying, you know, it takes us 3 cents to make a 1 cent penny.
Okay. Well, many people have tried to get rid of the penny for years.
Well, that's true. A lot of economists have said that. So, Julia, anything with you jumping out?
Nothing really shocking to hear about at this very moment. I did earlier today with the FEMA conversation and something that Tim had brought up. FEMA is something that has been on the radar for several presidencies, including Trump's first administration, I believe. And this is something that, as we continue to see natural disasters continue to compile across our nation and not being taken care of in a timely manner, when the locals step in and get things done, the larger things are the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges. That's when the federal government needs to step in, and FEMA has not done that job. They are not doing that job. Unfortunately, one of the kids that I oversee on the football team's parents were caught in that hurricane. And they came here and stayed with us, and I saw the text message from FEMA. And it was, if you come to this location and you can come to us at this exact time between this hour and this hour, we will give you $700. There wasn't a reach out. There wasn't a conversation. It was a fail all the way across the board. So I am in for that conversation.
Yeah, and I think this one's going to be happening. I'm going to talk to Michael. While I'm talking to Michael, go like this with your hair, your microphone for some reason. There we go. Michael, your thoughts.
Very smooth.
Very smooth. Just going to give us one of these as I throw down to the end of the table. Michael.
How's my hair?
No worries.
Ready for my close-up.
Mr. DeMille.
How about you, Michael? Anything jump out or anything that these two have said or that you want to comment on?
You know, what jumped out at me is that first few years of Marsha Blackburn being a spokesperson for republicanism and conservatism. And what I'm seeing in this transition is that, well, I'm not hearing a lot from Trump. I hear his surrogates, I hear his agents out talking, but I'm not hearing as much of him, not as many Twitter or X posts. And so when I saw Tim talking about all those issues, I thought, is he getting closer to the starting lineup? Is he getting closer to where the coach calls him in to speak about Republican issues or about how successful the Trump administration is? And I've been seeing him on CNN, that interview with Acosta. That was very telling to me.
One thing I would like to bring up is that he bought TVA close to home.
Yes, yeah. With the
I believe in the first Trump administration, they put it in one of their budgets to sell TVA.
Right.
And so I wonder if that is going to be something that is promoted throughout the rest of the Trump administration. Now, Tim is calling for transparency, which it certainly needs to. I mean, he's absolutely right that when it's something they want, they're not a government agency, but when they need money help or something like that over a government agency, we can't tell you that. So it'd be interesting to see if they make any progress on opening up TVA, cracking that nut, or will they pursue what they did in the first Trump administration and attempt to sell the organization?
Right.
So we'll see.
And also, just one of the other big topics is we are seeing, not just with FEMA, but all across the board, trying to give more power back to the states. I mean, we've been seeing.
And I wonder how that's going to work. Are you going to give, $100 million to each state to have in their bank account in case they have a natural disaster, a tornado, a hurricane, a fire, an earthquake?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of steps that need to be completed for some of these to happen.
I would say quite a few steps, especially for FEMA, but I think that when he was talking about Army Corps of Engineers, wouldn't say necessarily that they need to get off their butt in any capacity. They do a lot. I would say that we can really have a conversation about bringing in what's already here. I mean, every state does have its own National Guard who is here to guard our state, and they can step in and help in that capacity. So bringing extra funding to what's already here and taking it from the federal level. If it's already going to be funded and it needs to be brought back to the states, bring it to the organizations that are already here and active.
Okay, we're going to stop right there. Oh, Michael, hold your thought. Okay. And we're going to come back. I want to get it from you. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Tennessee this week. I want to go back over to Michael. You had something to say before we broke here just a moment ago.
Just briefly, just like with the Department of Education, I would like to see an effort made to change the leadership at FEMA and put a strong leader in there and see if a strong leader, over a short window of time if you'd like, but allow a good leader to get in there and straighten things out and see if that makes FEMA more effective than it is now.
So maybe change things at the top before looking at with the state issue.
Leadership makes a difference.
Okay.
That's why Donald Trump's in the White House. But
All right, if we move on now for what's coming up this week, and that is the special session, inside a session. The governor has already said that there are several specific topics that he wants to see addressed. I guess what a lot of people are wondering, are we going to get things accomplished this time around? Obviously, we have seen these special sessions. We have seen things like this, and we come out, we're still kind of at odds, or still the debate is continuing. So actually, Julie, I'm going to start with you on this one. How do you think this is going to go, and what is going to get done, do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a good conversation starter. Special sessions are special sessions. They are special. I think they're so special. I think one of the things that I read that I'm very curious to understand is they're creating a new government agency to house the conversation for CIEC. So in essence, we're saying we're going to dissolve creating new government agencies. We're going to cut back on dollars. We're going to do things more efficiently. And in the same term, we're creating an entire new system, an entire new something for the state of Tennessee. Who's going to fund that? Where is that funding coming from? Who's going to be in charge of that? And what are we currently doing where we can maneuver people that are already in place to just take that over? And I think that those are some conversations that could be brought up possibly in budget committees to discuss creating an entire new government agency. But on the docket, obviously, the school choice, school choice, and President Donald Trump did allude to that in a couple of his conversations on X. That's something that he supports. So we may actually see some movement in that after several governors have attempted it.
I was going to say, it has been quite the debate. Michael, I want to get your thoughts on this one as well, looking ahead to the special session.
Well, Bill Lee is an engineer. And every time Bill Lee does something that doesn't compute or that I'm not able to actually process, I start to think he has done what we call in engineering an extrapolation. He's worked his way to the end to see what he needed to do. And that special session, there must be something about that special session that allows all of the attention to be placed on only the issues that he's interested in. Having spent a few days at the legislative session, there are 24 moving parts in any given day. During that legislative session, there will be 2, maybe 3 moving parts, and they will be controlled by the governor's agenda. I think that's the way he will effectively get what he wants in the voucher program.
Do you think that's how it's going to play out, Craig?
Well, I've predicted on this program that the vouchers were going to pass this session, and I still think that they probably will. Even though the price tag for this bill is going up and up and up, I mean, you're up to more than $400 million in just the education factor alone. And then you got another $470 million that are going to be tagged for disaster relief. And I sort of wonder, we were talking about FEMA giving that money back to the states and things like, why wasn't the special session for disaster relief 2 months ago, 3 months ago? within a month of after the disaster hit, when when the money was really needed to flow into those areas, and now it's 4 months later. So I'm not sure that those state processes are working as well as they should either. So, we'll see. You can only discuss the things that the call is addressing in a special session. So you'll have that. And then the immigration part that Julie was talking about isn't actually funded yet. There's no funding mechanism for it. So they'll have to be adding more money to this special session. So, it could $500 million, maybe more. And that's a big chunk with minimal discussion and declining state revenues. So we have to think about that as well.
Yeah, a lot of different factors playing into here, that is for sure. We've got less than 30 seconds to go. So, I mean, will this be a successful yes or no? Is this going to play out? I mean, for the governor? I know you've already said you think the governor's going to
give it his best shot.
Okay.
This is the end of his term. This is it. So I think he's going to do everything he can to push his agenda at the last possible minute.
All right. We'll see how it plays out. Keep it tuned here to WATE as well as our website, WATE.com. As always, thank you so very much for coming in, sharing your opinions. Thank you for joining us as well, and we'll do it all again next week. Take care.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.